Silo, man, the show is great. The cast is perfect. I mean, Tim Robbins and Will Patton and David Oyelowo, who was like great in everything. I mean, just perfect in everything.
Thank you.
When you're done casting like this pilot, and you have this cast that you've assembled, do you just kind of kick back and think, heck yeah, or is it more like a sigh of relief, or is it both?
Well, we went straight to series. So, and we were basically, because it's a complicated show to shoot, and we were really getting it on its feet when people were still trying to figure out how to work during COVID, and there were all sorts of impacts because of COVID. So there were supply chain issues, even just getting our set built, because it's a massive set, and they needed a lot of lumber and concrete and steel, and all of those things were difficult. So it took a long time. And then even once we started shooting, the first block was a combination of all 5 of the first episodes, and we had characters, a couple of our series regulars even, that didn't get introduced until a little later in, because as you know, we have stories that come and go in the beginning.
Right.
So we really were halfway through shooting before myself and my British counterpart, before we both felt like we'd cracked the back of all of the big characters. So I would say we started casting November or December of 2020. We started shooting October of 21 because of various COVID delays. And it probably was February or March of 22 before we felt like, we got this. It was huge. It was fantastic, but it was, huge. It was a beast.
Yeah. Did you know going into it was going to be this like beastly?
No. Partly because now that we're in this streamer world, things have changed. Each project has its own way of being. So I've worked on so many different hybrids of how we're shooting, whether it's, even in network television, we used to crossboard often, but when you did that, you were only talking about 2 episodes maybe at a time. And streaming, it's sort of allowed for having maybe 1 or 2 directors and crossboarding more than that at one time, which means you're prepping all of those episodes from a casting perspective, because at any point they can be introduced into the schedule, not how they normally would if you were just shooting an episode, moving on to the next episode. And so until you get a production schedule and start to see how it's coming together, which they don't always know until they start trying to figure out the best way to shoot, you really don't know what you're in for. We knew we were creating a world, and we cast Rebecca as well. There was no one attached when we came in, so it was, let's tackle the lead, and then the first series regulars that we see beyond that, and David and Rashida, the characters that we're going to, and Geraldine James and Will Patton, that we're going to get us through those first 4. Those were like what we started with, but it was really a lot to get it on its feet and cover all 5 of those first episodes kind of right up front.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Are when you first read a script, in your head, are you immediately like casting them and writing things down? How does that work?
It goes one of 2 ways. Personally, unless something just feels so unbelievably obvious to me that I cannot think of anybody else, which does happen occasionally, I try really hard not to. Like if I start getting ideas, I will write them down, but I tend to be someone that can focus in on something, like if and I want to stay as open as I possibly can in the beginning of the process. There are some roles on some shows where I'm just like, nobody else can do this. This is who it is. This is the answer, and we're done. But rarely. So yeah, I find I try not to limit myself as much as possible at the beginning.
On those sort of rare times when you're like, this can't be anybody else, have you gotten them? Like, what's the percentage range?
Pretty darn good. I mean, honestly, it also depends on who I'm working with. The Silo was created by Graham Yost, who I have worked with for 25 years and adore, and we have a shorthand, and we have very similar taste. I know who he knows. Sometimes he surprises me with new people that he will turn me on to, but in general, I have a pretty good sense of the tone he's going for and who feels right, and we're usually in sync. So, for example, when we were doing Justified, when they created the character of Mags Bennett in season 2, the first person I thought of was Margot Martindale. But she's based in New York. We didn't have a budget to fly people. It felt like a long shot. So I made a list, and then I auditioned people, and it turned out she happened to be in LA doing press, and came in and was everything I thought she would be. And it does happen. It happened on a couple of roles on Silo as well, where I mentioned who I thought would be right for a couple of them, and they got the role. But there was a process before they did, where other people were also seen, and it just turned out that they felt the most right.
Who was what was the hardest role to cast?
Juliet. Juliet was a really hard role. We didn't go out to a lot of people. We did read a lot of people, and we had, the list of ladies that we felt could be right, that were offer only. It was very helpful going through, because it didn't have to be a big name. But certainly that's a wonderful thing if we get it. So we kind of did both approaches, and it was really informative about the character. And the more you saw of people reading it, the more you realized exactly how difficult a role it is to cast and what you're asking of that person. And when we went to Rebecca, who if I remember correctly, was the first person we actually officially went out to, at least once I was on board. And initially she passed. She read it, she took her time, she read the books, she really responded to it, took it very seriously, but passed. And we were like, well, I think it was really hard to think of who else we wanted to offer it to that was going to feel as right. So we started the process of testing people, and just before we were ready to test, she called her agent and said, can you find out if that role is still available? I can't let go of it. Thank God. And I only tell that story because she has told that story. Otherwise, that would not be something I would be willing to discuss. But since she's willing to talk about it, yeah, we were all just like, oh my God, through the roof, excited when she said yes.
When she's great in the role, but like when she passed, does a part of you ever like want to call her and like try and twist her arm a little bit, or send her a gift basket and say, hey, you want to change your mind?
Well, she had conversations with Graham and with Morton Tildum, our director, and sort of everything had been done that could be done at that point. It's a tricky thing. It's a very personal decision to take on a role or not. Same as for me to take on a project or not. You have your reasons, and if fundamentally one of those reasons is you just don't think you can do it justice, doesn't serve anybody to talk you into doing it. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to trust people's instincts at some point. I don't think there was ever for her a question of whether or not she would enjoy working with Graham, who is just the best, or, I just think it was for her, she's not used to signing on to a series. She's got a lot going on in her life. At that time, she was still doing Dune and Mission Impossible, and there was just and she's got it coming again. Like she's a very busy lady. So I think honestly, it was more, how do I pull this off? And she somehow figured out a way to reconcile that. There have been times where I've had talent on the show reach out to whoever might have passed to say, you're missing an opportunity, you got to come do this, whatever. And that sometimes often works. I'm sure it means a lot for someone to hear from someone who's actually in the process on the show to speak to it. But rarely will I try to really talk somebody into something if they're thinking they don't want to do it.
I know you and Graham Yost have a good track record with Justified. Um, uh, but when you like bring on somebody like David, uh, I'm an actor too, so I would think that would incentivize like other actors to, instead of hemming and hawing, be like, yeah, I want to work with him.
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you, that was an incredibly hard role, both Allison and Holston, because, and it was hard from a casting perspective, because you need someone that is going to pull people into the show and really make them care about the world that they are just being introduced to. And yet that person is not going to stay with us. They're going to die. And you don't want people to then go, well, I'm done with this show. You know,
Right.
and what was so beautiful about David is that he makes such an impact, because it really does inform the entire show. It sets up why Juliet is put in the position she's in, and it's fundamental to it. Even the little tie at the end when she goes out and gives him back his puts his sheriff's badge on his body, and it's an emotional moment, and you really want all of that, which wouldn't pay off if it hadn't been someone you invested in as much in the beginning. But he's magic, so he managed to thread the needle of setting the show up on its feet and letting us know what kind of a world and project we're in for, and making us remember him throughout the whole thing. And then in comes Rebecca, who, thank God, also infuses, and you've got Tim Robbins, and you've got Common, and Harriet Walter, good Lord, to come in and pull you in with the rest of it. And so yeah, I think our biggest challenge was we just didn't want to set us up for failure and have people so angry when we lose some of these characters that they don't want to come back. Yeah, anyone who read the book, fortunately, would know that was coming. But
right. I feel like in sort of the era of streaming, a lot of bigger name actors are working on shows like this. Is it because they're a lot shorter seasons, and they're not committed to like a year and a half on a film or something like that? Do you feel like, is it easier for you to cast?
It is. Yes, it is. I think not all of them are shorter seasons, even though we did a shorter number of episodes. It was a decent length of time. However, there are ways to combine things so that people aren't spread out through the whole schedule. But there is a little more flexibility when you're not having to know that you're going to air in the fall or air in January, where everything has to be done by that time. Streamers generally are willing to delay a second season if that person is off doing some huge project, because it's only going to benefit the show for them to have been a part of that project. So, I think that's part of the appeal, because they're generally not of a mindset of having exclusivity with something, and maybe you do a one season or a limited series and then you're done. And with this, you are asking for continuing seasons, but because they aren't having to necessarily give up a big project if it comes their way, I think that makes it a little more palatable.
How do you like casting, I guess, pretty much virtually now? Is it, do you not enjoy it, but is it, I keep on using the word easier for you, but is it, you can see a lot more people, I would assume.
You see way more people. That doesn't make it easier. If anything, it takes up a lot more of my time. Instead of commuting into my office, having the downtime to get ready for the day, having the time to leave the office behind and come home. I don't have a commute. I'm working from the minute I get up until whatever time I end up stopping. And there's no, I don't know, used to be agents, managers, people kind of respected the fact that your office hours were 9:30 to 6:30. And if there was some reason that they needed to reach you outside of that, okay. But all of that, all bets are off now. And you're just reachable all the time. So unless you set up your own boundaries, that can be a little wearing. I miss terribly being in the room with actors. I love that more than anything. But I have seen so many more people, been exposed to so many people I didn't know, hired people from places that I can't be. You
Mhm.
know, I did an entire series for David E. Kelley that shot in New York. I did the pilot, and they're like, you know what? There's no reason you can't do the series if you want, because we're not having in-person sessions. So I did the series, and it was incredible. So it opens up a lot of opportunities, um, exposes me to a lot of people. I think the balance is, there are people who that it makes that more difficult for, if they're trying to self-tape and don't have someone to read with them, or don't have a great setup. We've always offered to Zoom with anyone that has any difficulty doing a self-tape. And I really love doing that. It's the next best thing to being in the room. At least I can, give some notes and work with someone. And we do that a fair amount. So I guess there's a happy middle ground. I don't think we're going to ever get back to the place of having hundreds of actors come in a week into the office, which makes me a little sad. But like I say, it's in its own way, I think, as hard as it must be for actors to get so many audition requests, it also gives them way more opportunities than they were getting before. So I guess there's a win-win there somewhere.
I wish more casting directors would offer that, like the back and
The
forth.
possibility of a Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel it's more like, just so, like, a lot of times my wife reads for me, and I don't think she'll watch this, but like, she's not very good. You know what I mean? She doesn't
Well,
give it her
I will
all.
tell you, if it makes you feel better, we never care about the reader. I've heard some of the worst possible readers ever. I had someone do an audition with a jackhammer going off next to him. I don't know why he chose to be out on the street of New York, but he did. It really is about the performance at the end of the day. And particularly if somebody can be good when someone is giving them nothing. If anything, that's a nice, like, you're like, I mean,
Right.
Yeah. So don't let that get in your head. But yeah, I feel like that's a no-brainer, that if someone needs that support, it should be offered to them. I would have done it in my office, so why wouldn't I offer it?
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of people cherish being able to do it in their home, in their privacy, when they've had the opportunity to rehearse, send the take that they like. It's not just one and done. For me, if I think someone's close but didn't quite hit it, then I will get on. I'll schedule a Zoom to redo it with them and tape it. And but it's often, it's really telling to see what someone's own interpretation of the material is. And they may think, without me giving them any information ahead of time, they bring something to it we wouldn't have thought of, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Do you have any, like, what's your biggest sort of one piece of advice for self tapes that you like to see?
Oh my, do I have one thing? I gotta think about that. I don't know. I mean, I guess you just want to make sure you've got decent sound, and it doesn't mean you have to go spend money. It's just, you don't want a lot of things fighting in the background if you can
Right.
help it, because that can really be distracting and very hard to follow what someone is doing. But outside of that, I'm not hung up on if it's perfect quality. If they've spent money on a camera, use your phone. It's not about all of that. It really, at the end of the day, is about what you're doing. And the more we can see what you're doing, the better. I guess that would be the thing for the people that tend to be too far away, and we're trying to like,
Mhm.
really get a sense of them. But otherwise, make a choice, and you know, just I guess that's it. I don't know. It sounds terrible, but yeah.
I a couple months ago, maybe last year, I was getting a self tape ready, and I'd already filmed it, getting ready to upload it, and I heard my cat meowing in the background. I was like, all right, whatever. So she
No
was,
worries.
<laughs>
That wouldn't be enough to disrupt the sound quality. I mean, we've had, I've had little kids come in towards the end of the set. I've had all kinds of things, and usually it's adorable, and you're just like, I mean, we're just doing the best we can. So, yeah, in fact, at any moment, you're probably going to hear my dogs lose their mind.
well,
Because,
I only got two more questions for you. I mean, you've cast so many great things. I mean, Pacific, Band of Brothers. I mean, you could stop right there and then boom, perfect. But for me, I'm a huge Las Vegas fanboy. Oh my God. I've watched that show probably 5 times each episode. Do you have any like casting stories or something you could just give this, rabid Las Vegas fan
Well,
guy?
let's see. We went in with, I won't say their names, but we tested 4 guys for the lead. It was ordered casting contingent on casting the lead. And Jeff Zucker was the head of NBC at that time. And he literally said to my producer, I can't believe you brought me 4 incredible leading men. You can have anybody you want. We could make this with any one of them. I've never heard that ever at a network session. He's like, who do you want? And from the start of the project, my Gary Scott Thompson, who had created the show, had someone that he was really interested in and excited about, who was one of the 4 that tested. And we went, he's like, he looks at me and he's like, come outside. So we stepped out into the hallway and he goes, who do I want? And I said, that person is the best show you're not watching. Josh Duhamel is the cover of TV Guide. And he's like, well, thank you. He walks back in, he goes, I want Josh Duhamel. And, it's one of those rare moments where you're just like, it just fit him so well. He was so right for that part. And it was a hoot to cast. We had a great time. We cast Rihanna. I didn't even realize, I forgot, because she wasn't Rihanna yet, you know, and we had all these incredible music people on. And
James Caan. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, come on.
I mean, my father, that was, forget anything else I ever did. The fact that I hired Sonny Corleone, as my dad would say, was the be all and end all of my career. So, and it was fantastic. He was fantastic. So yeah, it was just fun. It really was a hoot to cast that show.
Yeah. And then finally, just one thing I'd love to ask all cast directors I'm talking to. What's the craziest thing that has happened to you in an audition room?
Oh my. Okay. I did actually just tell this story to someone, but I had an actor come in. My associate was sitting next to me, and he stood up on the chair and turned around and proceeded to, he was going to pull his pants down. And I'm like, whoa. Turn around, get off the chair. What are you doing? And he said that he had been in an acting class. This is years ago. He'd been in an acting class with Jennifer Tilly, and she told him to do something crazy to get the casting director's attention. And I was like, okay, I'm sure that is not what she meant. Said, I am an employer. You don't do something that makes me never want to send you to a professional setting. I'm not, why would I send someone to my set who does something crazy in my office? Like, this is not like, it just was so shocking. But yeah, so I think that probably takes the cake. We did have someone actually on an audition. We were doing Meg Lieberman, who Meg cast the majority. Meg was the lead on the Pacific and Band of Brothers. I was just grateful to be around. But we did Boomtown with Graham Yost together. And it was one of the only projects where the 2 of us were able to really like be side by side in the room for everything. And it was amazing. And when the series was going, Meg was running it, and they brought in an actor who, in the course of the audition, smacked the floor so hard with his hand, he broke it in the audition.
Holy crap.
And we had to get him to the hospital. I mean, it was, talk about committed. It was like,
Yeah.
horrendous, but just for note to self, it's never needs to be that that level of intensity that you might actually hurt yourself in an audition.
I'm sure you could write a book with all the craziness that's happened. So
there might be a few things, although most of it I could never talk about because I can't names, and then nobody who wants to read that. I'm not going to say who did. So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it, Cami.
My pleasure. It's really nice to meet you.